What's going on, everybody? It is Chris Aiken from the Classic Metal Show, as well as AFTERSHOCKS TV, and just wanted to remind you before we get to this next episode that my first ever book, Little Victories, A Tale of Divorce, Debauchery, and Finding Happiness, is still available on Amazon.com and at my website, Chris Aiken Books. If you're going through a divorce or a bad breakup or whatever, this is going to be surprising because it's not just me telling dick jokes, but it's a fun book, but it's a very heartfelt book, and it's one that, if you've gone through anything ugly, you can definitely relate to it, and maybe it'll help you get through it if you're going through it right now. So check it out, Little Victories. It is available now, Amazon.com or Chris Aiken Books. Know what else is available right now? This episode that you actually came here to see.
All right, we're back here with another episode of Aftershocks on AFTERSHOCKSTV.com. And today we got a real special guest for you folks today. We got guitar legend who's here to talk about his band, The End Machine, and their sophomore release, Phase 2, Mr. George Lynch. George, thanks for coming on. How you doing, man?
You're very welcome. Trying to get my camera set up here to where it's... I'm very little tiny in this picture, so it's hard to tell what you're seeing. Do I look okay?
Yeah, we got you. We got you right in there.
You're all good, man.
Ooh, awesome. My hair's kind of messed up.
All righty.
Oh, I look good, actually. That's good.
There you go. Oh, yeah. All right, man. So, George, The End Machine, Phase 2 comes out April 9th on Frontiers. Record that I believe will no doubt make your fans happy, man, because it's definitely, it's definitely got that similar blues vibe that was on the first record, with the song like Devil's Playground, for example. But there's also definitely a heavy Dokken vibe on a lot of these songs as well. I'm hearing, those hooks that you're famously known for from those classic records. Songs like Plastic Heroes and Destiny, I think, are great examples of that. So when you guys started, the writing process for the record, was this the direction that you guys wanted to go in? Did you intentionally want to incorporate some of those Dokken type of hooks into the music this time, or did it just simply come out that way naturally?
No, we everything was premeditated. Jeff and I really wanted to have a game plan and have some kind of barriers up and some guideposts up for ourselves, self-imposed kind of direction, and essentially what that was is try to put ourselves in the same frame of mind that we're in 35 years ago when we were writing. Not that we were trying to copy Dokken, but just we were trying to maybe focus on some aspects of writing songs that we had forgotten about, and we had forgotten about some things. So I think instead of being focused on hooks more recently and accessibility and making sure we had a balance of keys and tempos and styles of songs and had, instead we were more concerned about being interesting and prove to people how smart we were and how creative we were and what musical geniuses we were, and challenge ourselves and the listener. But that really, it shouldn't be an exercise in, enjoying and writing songs should be an exercise in, like something that's, daunting. I mean, maybe if you're into some kinds of music it is, but for our brand of music and for most of our listeners, I think we had forgotten that, we want to give people something that's digestible and easily accessible and enjoyed.
Sure.
So, and had big hooks. We did to the best of our ability. We tried to make sure that all happened.
Sure, no, definitely. And you and Jeff, obviously, you got such a great chemistry when it comes to write music together. I mean, you guys have been doing this for well over 35 years. Obviously, you've got other projects that you've done together outside of Dokken, with Lynch Pilson, TNN, and The End Machine. And you just talked about, barriers that you put. I mean, do you guys, when you do typically, when you're doing writing or pre-production for your projects together, do you typically and intentionally tend to always put those barriers up to prevent anything from sounding too much like your past work, whether it was in Dokken or the other projects I just mentioned?
It depends on the project. For instance, like KXM just sounds like KXM no matter what we do. we don't have to, we don't even have time to think about it, because the way we do those projects are, is that we don't have any pre-production, and we don't really have any second guessing or evaluating or coming up with a plan or anything.
Right.
Our plan is logistical, basically. That's about it. And we get into a studio and come from different parts of the country, and we embed ourselves in whatever environment we're in for 12 days and write a song and record a song a day. And that's it. And whatever happens, happens, good, bad, or ugly. So there's no thought goes in. I'm not saying no thought, but I mean, no kind of plan.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just that's KXM is a result of our pure chemistry and energy. That's just the interaction through those three guys. And we thought maybe it was just an anomaly, the first record, and the second record would be, we didn't know what was going to happen. Well, guess what? It happened. All three records. It was the same exact sound.
Right.
So that's really interesting to me how that works. And, with Jeff and I, it's a little different. I mean, we do have a thing that we do when we just sit down left to our own devices, but we are all also have the luxury of being able to plan what we're going for, but we do have a style, obviously. We can finish each other's sentence. We're like an old married couple. So it's like, we don't really, we're on the same wavelength all the time.
Sure.
Whether it's like searching for sounds or trying to create a part and know what we're trying to create, or a performance, guitar, Jeff's great in the studio. He's really great because he's very positive. He's got a lot of energy, and he's not one of those people that, acts like he knows it all, or, he lets you be you and feel comfortable. And that's really important. So, someone say he's the ultimate producer, and he's got all these skills, his range of skills is just like everything from A to Z, soup to nuts. So he does it all. He's a multi-instrumentalist, a vocalist, a songwriter, an engineer, a mixer, a keyboard player, bass player, guitar player. I mean, so he brings all these tools, to the table. It's really wonderful. And sometimes I feel guilty about that because, all I'm doing is playing guitar. He's doing things. Then we split the money up even, and I was just like, wait a minute, that's not fair to you. But I'll take that. Right.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, also too, I mean, normally I would be including Mick Brown in that equation as well, but he, of course, has retired from music altogether. But you guys kept it in the family. You got his brother Steve to take over the drum duties on this record. Talk about playing with Steve. I mean, how does he compare to Mick, in terms of not only his performance on his instrument, but also his personality? Is he another wild Brown type like his brother, or mild?
The fruit didn't fall far from the tree.
Really?
Exactly the same person. Just obviously he's got, they're not twins, but I mean, you couldn't find a person on the planet closer to having the same personality as Mick. I mean, it's the same. Mick was always the jokester of the band. He was, as a lot of drummers are, I've noticed. And so he's that, he's the same sense of humor, very gruff and loud and just always funny. And it was just really nice to have in a working environment where things can be tense and stressful, to kind of alleviate that a bit. So it's good to have a guy like that in your project. Otherwise everybody's just too serious all the time.
Right.
You need some levity in the proceedings. So, but stylistically, wow. I mean, it's just like playing with Mick, but from, decades ago.
Sure.
It's just because, nothing against, Mick's the guy, but Mick's gotten beat up, it's a hard physical thing to do. I mean, to play drums for half your life or more, 40 years of hitting these things physically hard. It's not like a guitar player where I'm just, I'm moving my little fingers up and down, making ugly faces. Big deal. That's not hard. But, drumming, I mean, you put your whole body into it. Mick's a hard hitter,
Right.
And so, as is his brother. So he's just a lot fresher and less beat up and less jaded.
Sure.
Okay, sure.
So, but very positive, and that's, it was just really refreshing to have him in the band. So you had all the good aspects of Mick, but just a fresher, younger version of that. You know,
Sure.
what you'd expect.
Now, was Mick around even during this, or is this, or is it?
He did a hard, from what I understand, he did a hard retirement. He cut everybody out. He does not communicate with anyone, or very, very rarely. Or at least from everybody I've talked to, you know, all our former band members and everything, nobody's been able to reach him, or we've all tried reaching out. But from what I've heard, he's looking great and he's feeling great. And he did a hard, I call a hard retirement. I don't know if that's a term, but you know, he quit playing drums and he sold his drum sets.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
Wow.
So that means you're pretty much out. You're not, you know,
Right.
he didn't leave himself a backup plan, which I can see that being mentally makes sense, because, you know, if something caused you a lot of damage and you've gotten beat up physically and mentally over just years and years of this grind, well, get rid of the thing that allowed that to happen.
Sure.
Your instrument.
What,
When somebody calls you up and says, hey, you know, you want to make X amount of dollars and come back and just do this one, it'll be easy, just do this one record. You're not tempted to do it because you can't. You don't have to.
right. What would it take for you to do that with your guitars?
I would never want to do that, because I don't see really a downside to playing guitar. I mean, I'm okay. I mean, I would be a very kind of empty life without it. I mean,
Right.
not empty, but I mean, that's my passion, and I'm fortunate enough to have a passion, which not everybody has. You know, everybody's born with a passion. I don't believe it's something that you can find. Maybe it is, I don't know, but I think it has to be innate. You know, it has to be something that just is.
Right.
Sure.
And and it's you know, it's just, you know, it's a compulsion. And you know, I can't imagine life without it. It would be that would be seem sad to me.
Sure. No, totally. You know, as we were, George, we talked about, you know, you've been obviously involved with, you know, numerous projects over the years outside of Dokken and Lynch Mob. And I think all but one that, you know, KXM, as you talked about before, had more than 2 releases in total. And a lot of people always talk within the industry that if you have, you know, only 1 or 2 records, you don't tour so much, they're considered, you know, quote unquote projects. Do you see the M Machine as being, you know, just another project? Did you consider this band something that can potentially be a constant thing, especially now that, you know, Lynch Mob is no more? Or does it really just come down to like what kind of offers you get from, you know, Frontiers or any label that sort of drives your creative decisions?
It's definitely a band we could tour with. We've always thought that. We started it with that in mind, and continually talk about it and make attempts to try to make that happen. Having said that, after the first record, we were able, after Herculean efforts and fucking, you know, overcoming massive amount of obstacles, we were able to put together 3 shows, a grand total of 3 shows. That was it. That's all that we had time for. You know, there's Foreigner, there's Warrant, there's all my projects. That's all we could put together. So we rehearsed for a week for 3 shows, took 2 weeks out of our lives. We made it, you know, really make any money, but we didn't do it for that reason. We did it just because we wanted to, you know,
Right.
and show we could do it. And we had a blast. It was super fun. And we know the band is a viable live band, and we all agree we would love to find a way.
Sure.
I don't know what that means, but we'll keep trying. KXM's the same thing, as KXM has never played a live show, and we're already working on our 4th record.
Wow.
So, wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, creatively, obviously, I mean, do you need to have like these different, you know, outlets with your projects in order to satisfy your needs, you know, as an artist? Or would you maybe one day like to have more stability in terms of having consistent output of music and touring with maybe one of your projects, you know, or a new project in that sense?
I've just fallen into the routine of just, you know, living a adventurous musical life. I really enjoy the fact that I have the luxury of being able to play with people that want to play with me, that are, you know, bona fide cats from all genres, and I'm going to take advantage of that, because it's very rewarding. It's why I'm here, you know. And, you know, I'll kill all these projects and let somebody else sort it out at the end. But in the meantime, I'm doing, like, for instance, I'm doing The Banishment. You know, I've been doing that for 7 years, and
Right.
Victor and this guy Devix and me and Hayes, this kind of a big industrial remixer guy that does all the programming and engineering, and it's way different, but it's freaking cool as fuck, man. I mean, it's just, I so get off on it. We're just working in here the other night. It's going to be coming out this year finally. Again, it's a, you know, I'm sure there's going to be a subset of my fan base that's going to hate it, but it's still rock. It's still heavy.
Sure.
It's tense as hell, but I, you know, whatever. And then on the other side of that coin, I'll always have my touring entity. It won't be Lynch Mob. I'm working with I'm thinking of calling it George Lynch and the New West, which is a name. The New West is a name I've had kicking around since frickin' the 80s. And I told some of my friends about it, and I'm recently kind of like searching for a new name for a touring entity, and my one friend brought that up. He goes, "What about the New West? That was a cool ass name." I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I do like that. George Lynch and the New West. Why not? And so I think that might be what I'll use. That's what I've been putting out there with my agent, and that way it'll give me the freedom to play a wider variety of stuff. You know, it's not just going to be Lynch Mob centric. I mean, we'll probably play some of that, but, you know, and Dokken, but also all kinds of other stuff. You know, I could just play anything. I could change it up every night.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, George, I got to ask about the whole Lynch Mob thing. I mean, did people really just not get that your name is Lynch and actually harass you over the band name? I mean, I certainly understand the connotation in 2021 that it's you know, it's not politically correct or whatever, but look, I've been a fan for 30 however many years since the first record, and never once did I think of it as even a social thing. I think myself and probably most people thought of it as, well, it's this group of guys and here's the ringleader, George Lynch. It's the Lynch Mob. No?
I was playing Providence, Rhode Island, and really cool downtown section, old town, you know, and just all these neat little restaurants and very interesting town, you know, very ethnically diverse. And I love that, you know, and culturally diverse. And the venue was a theater, and I was walking from the hotel to the theater for sound check in the afternoon, and you know, just checking everything out. And there was this food bank kind of thing. I went into the food bank and I grabbed some strawberries just because I'd never been to a food bank and I wanted to experience that. And I was talking to these people, and it was like a group of black guys, and they were sitting out on this you know, this up by the sidewalk and everything. And we started talking, and I told them, I felt a little weird about it, but I was like, told them what I was doing, and I invited them to the show and stuff. And they're like, "Oh man, I'm black. I can't go see some band called Lynch Mob." And then everything happened, you know, and that's happened. Things like that have happened to me like dozens of times, you know.
Right.
I got to the point where I would show people, I would preempt my revealing of the name of the band. "Are you in a band? What's the name of your band?" And I'll be like, "I'm going to show you my ID first. Okay, here's my driver's license." Now, and then I stopped doing that, and I just started telling people, you know, at the airport or whatever, "You in a band?" And we're walking through the airport, and they'd have guitars on us. And no, we're called Dokken. I just got tired of explaining it, and I felt bad about saying it, and it just started bothering me to the point where, listen, I've been able to rationalize the name. I understand the connotations, as we all do, and I also understand it's my name. I know black people with the last name Lynch.
Right.
I mean, the other George Lynch is a basketball player, man of color, you know, in North Carolina, or the Tar Heels. But you know, it's not to the point of being able to rationalize it anymore. Sure, I could get away with rationalizing. I'm just not comfortable with it, and especially the world is turning for the better, I think, you know, and I think all this stuff needs to be dealt with. Hopefully, you know, we can deal a pretty heavy death blow to all this racism shit.
Right.
I highly doubt that we'll be successful, but I don't want to be even a small part of this problem in any freaking way whatsoever, because I'm, you know, it's got the point, made me so uncomfortable that listen, I don't care if I suffer financially. I don't care, the repercussions. I don't care if people give me crap. I'm just personally done with it. It doesn't feel right anymore. And it's long overdue. And I got to say that when I first named the band Lynch Mob in 1989, the guitar player from Living Color was an ESP endorser. I'm an ESP endorser, and he quit over that. He said, I can't be on the same label as the guy with the names of the band Lynch Mob. And I thought that was a little ridiculous at the time. I now play with Corey Glover, his singer, on another project, the Ultraphonics, and we've spoken a couple of times, and I think he understands how I feel about things, and we have we can speak to each other, and we're on the same page. But it's just that he set up an interview. He asked me if I would be willing to do an interview with the Village Voice, which I did.
Okay.
And the interviewer was a young woman of color, and she didn't want to talk about anything but the name. And just wanted to drill down. And I remember that interview. I'll never forget it. And I was just kept trying to explain it. And I was if I had to be completely honest with myself, I was rationalizing. I said, well, I'd use every rationalization in the book. It's my last name. It's cowboys, strung up cattle rustlers. I mean, on and on, all this silly shit. But the elephant in the room is it's about that. And that's the way people perceive it. And it's wrong. And I don't want to be part of it anymore. And I feel a lot better since I got rid of it. The other side of the argument also is that, or the reason why I got rid of it was because the pandemic came up, killed my touring for a year. So it gave me an opportunity to rethink everything. And at 66, I'm like, you know what? I've done this band for how many years?
Yeah.
How many records have we put out? How many tours have we done? I mean, we've pretty much done it all. Okay. I want to do something a little different. I want to mix it up a little bit,
Sure.
Create a different kind of band where I can play a wider spectrum of music. I can just call shit out. We'll jam. We'll do covers. We'll do stuff from any of my records or any of my other projects. Keep it interesting and fun and mix it up. So where you go to a show, you're kind of like, you don't know what to expect.
Right.
I like that idea.
Sure.
Instead of seeing, how many times you go see Lynch Mob? We'll play Wicked Sensation, River of Love, and we'll play some Dokken stuff, and we'll play some deeper cuts off the first record, and maybe a few other things off other records that people don't recognize and won't care less. And that's it. And how many times can you go see that band? Like if I want to go see a band that I like, even if I really love them, like King's X, how many times can I go see that band? And because they're going to play the same material,
Right. Sure.
How many times do I want to see that band play the same material?
Right. That's a fair point.
Yeah.
George, one last question before we let you go. Certainly in the 80s, in the early 80s, the big three guitarists were yourself, Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen. A lot of people put you in that list. It's a great list to be on, obviously.
Yeah.
As a guitarist that's regarded in that rare air, how did Eddie's passing affect you, not only as a player, but as a person, because I'm assuming you knew him because I'm sure you ran in the same circles. So how did it affect you both as a player and as a person?
That was hard. I mean, we were all getting older. So, we're witnessing this kind of thing, experiencing, passing of acquaintances and friends and people in the industry a lot more often now. And kind of reminds me of, the Rat Pack,
right?
And all those guys started to go away. It's just, Frank Sinatra, then Dean Martin, and then on and on and on, Joey Bishop, and then it's just I mean, he was the biggest of the he was the man. We kind of all we were kind of orbiting satellites around in his universe,
Right.
And we had we came up together in the same clubs, played the same stages together, and hung out together, and did Monsters of Rock. We did a lot of hanging out on that one, and he
did you learn from each other, George?
Huh?
Did you learn from each other? Like, did he show you stuff, you show him stuff? Or
Randy was more of a, I don't want to use the word fan, but Randy was very open about appreciating where I was coming from as a guitar player.
Okay.
He told a lot of people that. I mean, his mother told me that. Dolores, when she, I got the consolation prize when I didn't get the Ozzy gig, he got it, and I got to take his place as his guitar teacher at his mom's school. She goes, he wanted you. And he'd bring his mom down to see me play at Starwood a couple times and all this and that. So, but Eddie wasn't more, Eddie was, Eddie knew he was the king.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody else even mattered, I don't think. Unless you were a classic, one of the Four Horsemen, or Brian May or Clapton or somebody, But as far as contemporaries, I think everybody else was his competition, and he was out to destroy the competition. Which he did very well.
Right. A typical murderer's row, though, right? There's one guy like a Michael Jordan type is like, yeah, you guys can be good, but not as good as me.
Oh yeah, he would put the death knell on you for sure. And the guys just kind of knew when he came up with it. Okay, this guy, he's definitely the top dog. I mean, we're going to be also Rans,
Sure.
And that's how it was, and he knew it, But he put in the work. I mean, it's all he did was play,
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Practice. He was the guy. He never went out, never left his bedroom, and just he morphed into that. There was no separating him from his instrument. Where a guy like me, I do a lot of other things. I mean, guitar is important to me. Music's part of every fabric of my being, but I also do lots of other things.
Sure.
So it's not just
right.
But he was just about that.
Exactly.
And it paid off. And when he passed, it was hard. I mean, Leslie West passed. It was hard. Everybody, all these guys. But I mean, Eddie, it was hit a lot closer to home because we were, contemporaries and we came out from the same place, and
right.
We're pretty much the same age, close to the same age, and playing the same kind of music. And yeah, it's close to home, man. It's really sad.
Yeah.
And he left a giant hole, when he left. It was really hard on all of us.
Exactly. Well, I guess that hole can be filled a little bit with the new one from the End Machine called Phase 2. It is it's a great release. If you like that classic 80s metal sound, it's definitely one you should get. And so, George, where should people go to keep up with you and everything you're doing?
They can just come to my house, sit with me in my garage, and I can just talk about myself like I've been doing for the last half hour, or actually last 3 hours.
Right.
Except, just go on my website or Instagram.
Okay.
GeorgeLynch.com, whatever the Instagram is. George Lynch Instagram.
There it is. People will figure it out. Yeah. Awesome. Well, George, thanks so much for joining us once again here on Aftershocks.
Yeah, man. It was fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Aftershocks. For more episodes, go to our website at www.aftershockspodcast.com. Visit us on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages for more news and information on the podcast. And be sure to subscribe, listen to, and review all episodes on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. For your music listening pleasure, visit our website or go to www.shockwavesradio.com. For all comments and questions, please email us at info@aftershockspodcast.com.
All right, everybody, another great interview right here on Aftershocks TV. And before we go, just want to remind you one more time, make sure you get over and subscribe to the CMS Podcast Network, cmspn.com. You can watch, you can listen, you can subscribe to everything that we do, not only us, but the classic metal shows, Shockwave Skull Sessions, Talk to Me. It's all there, one site, get 4 great shows, never have to do anything again but be entertained. So check it out, cmspn.com, cmspn.com, cmspn.com. Until next time, folks.